This is episode 73 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Cade, and today I'm speaking with Hilary Walker. As an adult living and working in Germany, Hilary bought a horse and began riding again after a long break. A terrible rider, she got used to being yelled at by her various instructors while struggling through the national riding tests that would allow her to participate in shows. From show jumping, she progressed to one-day events, competing in Italy, England, and the US, wherever her husband's job took them. While in the UK, she bred her gelding, Cruz Bay, on whom she now rides dressage in the States. Hilary's Christian faith was growing at the same time as her riding skills improved, and her fiction combines horses with her love of Christ. She has just moved to Hilton Head, South Carolina, where she lives with her husband and 2 English bulldogs. Cruz Bay is happily making new friends, as is his owner, at a wonderful local boarding barn. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Cade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Cade, and today I am so excited to have Hilary Walker on the show. Welcome, Hilary.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. And Hilary lives in a place so close to my heart. She lives in Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. It's a place I spent many spring breaks with my family. So she's an islander and she gets to ride year round and live on an island. How cool is that with the beach right there?
Oh, I'm very privileged being here 3 years and loving every moment of it.
That's fantastic. And she's also an equestrian after my heart because she's got all of her blue ribbons featured around the room for those of you watching us on YouTube. So she is an award-winning author and an award-winning horseback rider. So we're going to have fun talking today. Those of you that listen to my podcast often, you know I'd like to start off the conversation by asking the authors I interview how your love affair with horses began. Talk to us a little bit about your love affair with horses, Hilary.
Yeah, it's happened kind of twice. The first time was when I was 7 years old. And I had my first riding lesson. I can't even remember why or how that happened, but that was it. I mean, I was hooked and I was going to do everything I could to ride a horse, to get close to a horse. I would just stand and talk to horses in the field. I mean, I was really bad. And I was bugging my parents for a pony, as you do. And I got to have riding lessons. But I've been scared of horses most of my life. So it's been, I love them and I'm scared of them. But I just couldn't help myself. I had to keep riding. So I would go on trail rides. My lessons consisted of trail rides in those days from 8, 9 up to I was about 16. But every time we got to the patch of grass where they'd canter, I would deliberately fall off because I was scared. I didn't want to canter. So everybody hated me. The whole ride had to stop and wait for Hilary to get back on her pony. And then we couldn't canter anymore. So I wasn't very popular. And I was horrible at it. I was horrible at riding, but I just couldn't help myself. And then finally I got a pony, age 16. My father said I could have him for 2 years from 16 to 18, but when I went to college, I had to sell him. So I got my first pony. He was a super Connemara and had a lot of fun with him. He actually got, after I sold him to the school, he got an award from Princess Anne for long loyalty as a disabled riding pony. They used him in the program. Yeah. So he got his medal from Princess Anne, which was nice. Then I stopped riding and I figured that was it. I couldn't afford horses. That was the end of horses. But then I met my husband and he made me ski every single weekend. We were living in Germany, which is where we met. He's American, but he loved skiing. And as soon as the ski slopes opened in November until the end of March, we had to go skiing every single weekend. I was working, I was a CPA with a firm in Frankfurt, as was he. But all my weekends were spent skiing. And then finally, in March, the snow was melting and getting icy. And I just sat down on the slope and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to ride. And he said, well, then get yourself a horse. So I thought, he has no idea what that involves, and I'm not going to tell him. So then we bought a horse for me. And then he realized he wasn't going to see his wife for dust if he didn't buy one too. So he actually joined in, which was great.
Yes.
So that it started all over again. So I had about maybe a 10-year gap.
Mhm.
And I was just so privileged to get back into horses then. And we've had horses ever since.
Oh,
And yeah.
lovely. That's like a dream story. And your husband embraced it and supported it and got his own horse and learned to ride. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. It was great. We competed together. We did show jumping together, one day eventing, dressage. I mean, he was a trooper. His horses has died. He died 2 years ago at age 28. So my husband is happily playing golf now. He's happy to not have to ride, but he was wonderful about it. So, and I've still
Wow.
got my guy.
That's fantastic. And it's always so hard to say goodbye to our beloved horses. I know how difficult that
Yeah.
is. 28 is though nice and long. Uh,
Yes.
and in addition to your forever love of horses, it's so funny to me that you had like this love hate relationship where you wanted to ride so badly, but you would also jump off when it was time to canter. Canter is always the scariest part for young
Yep.
people.
Yes. Yeah.
But clearly you got over that.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
wonderful, and way to keep with it, because that's what we have to do, whether it's writing or riding. You just have to keep with it and keep going, because you never know when it's all gonna magically click.
Yeah, and if you've got a passion for it, it got to the point with horses that I couldn't help myself. I mean, I just had to do it, even if I
Mhm.
was rubbish. I mean, I had an instructor in Germany I'd been taking as an adult when I started riding again. I had this German instructor, and I took private lessons every single day for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, I mean, I was going to go on forever, but the instructor came up to my horse. He said, "Stop, stop." And he came up to the horse's head and he looked at me and he said, "Are you sure you want to keep doing this?" 'Cause I was so bad. I was so bad. I mean, things improved after that, quite a long ways down the road after that. But I just couldn't help myself. I just
Mhm.
had to keep doing it. And if you've got a passion, and same for writing, you just keep doing it. And then eventually, like you say, the pieces start to fall together and things start to work out.
That is incredible advice. I love the way we started off this interview, because this is all about grabbing your passions and hanging on tight and pushing through and making things happen, which leads us to your books. You've written a lot of books, and you write horse books too. So talk to us about your books. Like, what led your passion for horses into your book series and what you're up to now?
Well, the first real horse book, it was. I'm also Catholic. I mean, anybody who's read my Writing Out series will know that, and I'm a pretty passionate Catholic too. And I wanted to combine the Catholicism or Christianity in a broader sense with my love of horses. And my son has ulcerative colitis,
Mm.
which he got at age 21. So as a very young adult, he's had to struggle with this, and he's impressed me enormously with the way he deals with it. So I said, that's it. I want to write a book with a hero who has ulcerative colitis, without sugarcoating it, at the same time trying to give a little bit of advice to people on how to deal with it, having watched my son deal with it naturally. He tried the medication, just didn't work. It made him worse. So he's been working hard to get better naturally. So I thought, okay, I'm going to combine all those elements. I'm going to combine the Catholicism, the horses, and my son's situation into one book that will hopefully be interesting. I'll enjoy writing it. We'll see.
Mhm.
So I did that, and I handed it to various people, your family and friends to look at. And my uncle said, "This book it's trying to be more. There are more books trying to come out of this. This isn't a single story." And I thought I'd finished, but he said, "No, you haven't." So I realized, yeah, he's right. And that turned into a trilogy. And I enjoyed writing it. It was a lot of fun. I had no idea that the story could go anywhere, but it did. And then you know how it is when you have characters that you get heavily involved with. They take on a life of their own, and they tell you what they want. They tell you where they're going to go, and you just got to follow them. So
Absolutely.
that's how, yeah. So that's how the first trilogy happened. And also, it was a great excuse to use everything I've ever done with horses. into the books. So the trainer has a lot of problem horses that, surprise, surprise, he's dealing with troubles with horses that I've had. So it was writing what I know, putting it together and seeing if anybody wanted to read it.
What's the name of your trilogy? And do you have the covers there to show?
Yes, I've got, I have to say in advance that these are, because they are ebooks that I've also published as physical books, then I only have my author copies. But here's the first one. So it looks a little weird with "not for resale" written across it. But this is the first one.
Perfect.
So Riding Out the Devil. And then that was followed up by Riding Out the Tempest. My uncle said, call the first one Riding Out the Devil. And I thought, if it's going to be a trilogy, then I should use the Riding Out for the rest of the books and make it a series that's easily recognizable. So here's the next one. And that's book 2. And then book 3, Riding Out the Rough. So there we go. Again, I apologize for the line across, but you get the idea.
Well, these are the things that, people listening to this podcast learn. It's authors do order author copies that say not for resale, and sometimes we send those to our early advanced readers, and often that's what we work with. Those are part of our toolkit. And your covers are gorgeous with the horses on the front. I mean, it's very clear this is a horse book. I'm sure that was a decision you made on purpose, intentionally.
Yes. I wanted to have a single crisp horse on it that was in action. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want it to have any bridles or saddles or people on him. I just wanted the horse, because the horse was an important part of this whole thing. And having done the first cover with the first horse on it, I said, okay, that I'm going to do all the other covers with a single horse doing something interesting, so that it's a nice cover, eye-catching, but also is a trademark of the Riding Out series. So the covers of the second trilogy in the Riding Out series, same thing. So they stand out, hopefully, and people can recognize them. This is the trilogy that's the Riding Out trilogy.
Very smart move. And so this trilogy started your horse book, equestrian fiction kind of jaunt, but then you've since expanded. You had success with the trilogy, and now you're continuing to go. And you also have dabbled into some Christian romance. Am I framing that up the correct way?
Yes, no, absolutely. So what happened was, I'd done this first trilogy that you've just seen the covers for, and somebody had said, really would like you to do a trilogy. I want to know more about the priest, Father Michael, who's in your first trilogy. So I knew I had that coming up, but I needed a rest. I was just needed to take a break from the Catholic trilogy, do something different, recharge my batteries so that I was ready to do the second trilogy. And NaNoWriMo was coming up. If for those of you who haven't done it, it's a challenge in November every year where you are given the challenge to write 50,000 words of a novel within the month of November. Obviously, you've 1,666 words a day for 30 days, which is, if you're used to writing, that's not a bad thing. But if you're not, it's kind of a stretch. But I thought, okay, I'm going to use the NaNoWriMo challenge to do something different. And well, let's try a horse romance. So I did that. And the first one was actually a Hilton Head romance called Ivan's Choice. And then after I'd written that, left it alone a little bit, come back to it, tidied it up and published it. And that did rather well. So I thought, okay, I can think about doing some more romance books with horses in, which, by the way, is a fabulous combination to write too. It's a fun thing to write.
You're speaking to my heart here. I love that.
Yes, I bet. Yeah. So then a friend of mine who's a brilliant riding instructor came to visit, and she was giving a riding clinic at Defusky Island, which you may know if you went down to Hilton Head. It's an island apart from Hilton Head that you can only get to by boat. There are no cars allowed on there. Everybody goes around in a golf cart. That's how the island operates. So my friend went there to give a clinic, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect. All I need to do is make an island of my own. I'll invent an island, and then I will have horses on it. Of course, I have to deal with the logistics of getting the horses on the island, which comes into the books. And because some of the people at the barn where my friend was teaching were dating people on the island, married to somebody on the island, I thought, this works. People actually do meet people on islands and get married. And then that was it. I thought, okay, I'm not going to do the Hilton Head ones anymore, or for the time being. I'm going to do Sinclair Island romances. The island's called Sinclair Island, and off I went. It was great. It was great fun. Being great fun. I mean, it stretched me because it's not my normal genre, but I'm getting into it more and more as I write them.
Yeah, and I love it. I love listening to the inner workings of your author mind. Isn't it fun when like these ideas like bubble up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can do something with it. And you just got to run with it because that's your muse telling you that's the
Absolutely.
direction to go. Yeah. And
Absolutely, yeah.
you have a cover there too of one of your romance novels, which I thought was really cool. You showed that to me earlier.
Yes, this is one that, am I allowed to plug the people who did the cover?
Absolutely. Yes.
I used 100covers.com. Let's see if I can give you, and they do a brilliant job. They charge $100 for a cover, which you cannot argue with. And if you watch out, they actually do have deals where you can get them for $49 sometimes. Those info stack deals that they have sometimes with about 50,000 things for authors just for the price of $49, and 100covers.com, they often advertise in there for $49. You can get their cover for $49 if you get the info stack, and you can't beat it. And they will also, in addition to the cover for the ebook, as you can see, they do it for your physical copy. They will also do banners and so forth for you as well. So
That's incredible.
I have to give a big plug for them. They've been brilliant. They've been brilliant for me.
And then, so they help you because, this is a question I'm going to ask you later, but I understand you're an independent author. So they'll design your ebook cover and your print book cover to the specifications that you need for uploading to like Amazon and whatnot for $100.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. And they're very, very good because they ask you exactly what you want. They listen to you, which is what I love. They listen to you. What do you want? What's your book about? Tell us about comparable books, your genre, the whole thing. They really do their research. And because now they've done 3 covers for me, but it's very easy for me. I just say, okay, and I want something that looks like what you've done before. And I actually, I make it easy for them now too, because I know where they get their photos from. So I go and find the photos of what the people I want on the covers and the horse. And I just send them to them and they put it all together and make a fabulous cover. So, I mean, you don't have to do that for them, but the first time around, they did it for me. And then after that, I figured that it was easier and quicker if I find my own guy, because then you don't get a cover from them and say, I don't like the hero. Find the hero first, send it to them, and then they'll put it on. But they're wonderful to work with. They're very fast, and I can't recommend them highly enough.
Well, that's incredible. Thank you for that tip and that resource. So it's 100covers.com, and I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes so people can go and check out what they do, because I often get questions about, how do you get your book cover designed? And people do this in a lot of different ways, and it's always good to have a new resource that someone speaks highly of to share. So thank you for that.
Good. No, please use them.
And so in total, how many books have you written?
Oh, I think it's about 16.
That's incredible.
There's some nonfiction in those, but yeah, around 16. Yeah.
And I'll make sure to link to your website so people can check out the depth of your backlist, because if we talked about all 16 books, we'd probably be here for, 5 hours, which I would love to talk to you for 5 hours, but we have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
But in the books that you've mentioned, I know we talked about, romance, and then the Christian fiction or Catholic fiction. Is there a message that you hope people connect with when they've finished reading your books?
Yes. With the Catholic ones, I am trying to portray the Catholic faith in a positive light. The Catholic Church is managed by itself to portray itself in a less than positive light. And I really would love people to see that the real faith is a beautiful faith, and has so many good sides to it, and so much that people can benefit from if they are interested. At the very least, through my Catholic fiction and then through my Christian fiction, the non-denominational romance series, I hope to bring people closer to God. I hope to bring people to a quest for finding out more about God and feeling close to Him. So it's my way of evangelizing, if you like.
And you're being creative with it, and you're sharing your message and inspiring people, and that's what creative writing is about. And you're talking to people through your words about something that's very important to you, and that shines in people's writing. So I think it's lovely, and I love that you're inspired to do this. Now, have you always been like a creative writer, or did this come along a little later in life for you?
Came along much later in life. My son loves to say that he he finds it very amusing that I basically flunked English at school. I mean, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was jolly close. And here I am now writing and not doing too horrible a job at it. It was just something that I wrote a diary when my parents sent me to a school in France when I was a kid, boarding school in France. Immediately after that, they sent me on holiday with a French family on Corsica, and I was not happy, let's just say I wasn't happy. So I wrote a diary. I wrote it in English. This is a French family, but the mother found my diary.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was very uh-oh. Even though she didn't speak fluent English, she got the gist of what I was saying. So that was it. I was never going to write a diary again, and I never have. So any kind of writing, I just wasn't interested in at all. And then it was later, my son was about 3 years old. We moved to England. Well, I'd moved to England. My husband was still working in Italy. And we bought a house in England. Our horses were able to live with us there, which is what I also wanted. And my husband did eventually manage to move out there with us. He would visit on weekends. Point being, I was there by myself with my son. And in the evenings, I thought, you know what, I just really like to start writing just for fun. And that's where it started. And then I went to a creative writing class, and that was enormous fun. And it took off from there.
Oh,
Because
that's
I was around a
lovely.
lot of people. Yeah.
Well, and I love I love that you mentioned this too, because you don't have to have a degree in creative writing or have been the A+ student in an English class to write, because just by the process of writing, like doing NaNoWriMo or getting your words out on the page, you do improve. It's like everything that you write, and the more you write, the better you get. It's just like a skill you practice, and you get sharper the further you go. Like, if you go back and you read, I don't know, some famous author's very first book, it's going to be 100% different than the ones that, are topping the bestseller list. But it's that practice that gets you to that place where, and you never know which one it's going to be that like just rockets out of you and
Right.
becomes that one book. So
Right.
I love that you mentioned that, because, people are often like, I would love to write a book, but I'm not good enough. And it's not the case. It's just sitting down and doing the work, and you're proof.
And it's funny because you'd think that just like the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again. But for some reason with writing, that's not true. You just keep working at it, you get better at it. Like you say, you're absolutely right. Yes.
Like the horrid comma. Where on earth do I put this comma?
I know. I have some friends that are very strict about their commas, and they get mad at me, and we have these huge arguments about my commas. Yes, I hear you.
That's what I have an editor for. I'm like, I put a comma there. Let me know where I need to put my commas, because it's about the words, and then she helps me make sense of all the punctuation. So, uh,
Good.
um, and so we did touch on this a little bit earlier, but you've had an interesting experience with traditional publishing and also independent publishing. Can you talk to us about your journey with publishing and which you prefer, traditional or independent publishing?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought that I would like to be traditionally published. Obviously, there's kudos attached to that. So I was very pleased when this Christian publishing company took up my books. I had been publishing independently for a little while when they picked them up, and thought, well, this is great. Then they're going to deal with everything, all the boring stuff, all the admin, all the advertising. All I have to do is sit and write. But then I missed having complete control over the time, the plan, the timeline, and I was kind of iffy about the covers. It was just lack of control over my work. I just suddenly realized, gee, I've actually enjoyed being in control of the whole process, even though it is a lot of work.
Mhm.
So I talked to them, and they were very, very kind. They really were very, very sweet, and they let me out of the contract. There's no hard feelings. And I went back to taking over all my books, and I was a lot happier. I was a
Mm,
lot happier. I can make my own mistakes, and I do, but they're mine.
mm,
And there's no time lag between writing and publishing when
mm.
you do it yourself. When I'm ready, it gets published. I'm in charge of my whole launch strategy. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't, my bad. So I enjoy everything. I prefer writing, but I like being in control. I'm obviously a control freak.
Here, let's virtual high five to that because
Okay.
I am the same way. It's like
Okay.
I do like the control and retaining my intellectual property and having a
Yep.
say in the covers and yes, trying things and some things work and some things don't, but it's like all part of the creative journey. And yes, I'm like you. It's like I prefer to be writing, and there's a lot of stuff to have to sort of manage. But what I think you touched on in your answers that I read before our interview, what I like the most is that you said you don't have to like write to a schedule. Like you can do it as it suits you. And I appreciate that too about independent publishing, because writing to schedule can put unneeded stress, I feel like, on your creative process, and
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
not, maybe it's not as good. Not all people work well on timelines like that.
And to your point, as I wrote in the notes to you, my horse hurt himself,
Mm.
and that really, really put a crunch on my time. I had to. This happened in August, and we're still 6 months later. I'm still having to go to the barn twice a day. At the beginning, it was like 6 hours of my time a day. I had to go out there. I had to do his bandaging, rebandage his legs, take him for a walk, and hand graze him 45 minutes each, bring him back in, go back home, come back out, half-hour trip, 6 hours eaten up, no problem at all. And I'm used to having 5 hours to just write and then go see my horse. That was out the window. And as you say, if I had had a traditional publisher, they'd have been breathing down my neck, and it would not have gone down well.
Spoken like a true equestrian, the horses always come first, right?
Oh,
Particularly
hello. Yeah.
particularly when they're hurt and they're under our care. Like horses always come first before everything. And if you're a horse
Yes.
owner, you know that. But and I love that the writing life that you've chosen for yourself has provided the opportunity for you to make adjustments so you can be there for your horse in the time of need, or your family, or whatever you need to be doing. So, and I hope he gets well soon. I know how much work it is to take care of a horse that's hurt his foot. I know that's very difficult.
Yeah, it's a soft tissue injury. That's always bad news. But he's getting better, and I'm able to ride him now. He's on the trot. You may or may not have been through this. The good old trot sets, 3 minutes trot twice in a period of 30 minutes. Trying to keep him sane. He's used to being out 24/7, and now he's stuck in the stall, has been for the full 6 months.
Oh,
So it's a slow process, but I'm hopeful. The vet looked at him recently and said, "Hey, my goodness, he's doing all right." So, God willing, I will have him back in full work very soon.
well, fingers crossed for you. And you're being a great horse mom. And I know this stall rust can drive a pony crazy. So you're doing the right thing by him. And you did mention that you had a writing schedule prior to all this. So like how you've written 16 books. How do you structure your writing time when you aren't caring for an injured horse? Like what a writing session look like for you?
Well, my regular day is get up at 6, go to mass. Used to be until COVID, go to Barnes and Noble. I have my little corner there. I'd get there right on time, so I grab my corner, sit there, drink my coffee. Actually, it's chai tea now, one after the other for 5 hours. Well, it's about 3 chai teas over a period of 5 hours, and write. And the people at the cafeteria knew me well because I was there all the time, and they would give me more more tea than I really should get for, because I'd bring in my big mug, my big soup mug, and they'd fill it to the top, even though it was more than the usual venti. They looked after me so well. It was brilliant. And they also, the manager there said, "Well, what do you do? What do you do there?" And I said, "Well, I'm writing." And luckily I had just got the Saving Prophecy book that I showed you was a bestseller on Amazon. So I said, "Oh, look." So that was nice. It gave me some kudos with them, and they were wonderful because they also bought my books and put them in the store.
Oh, that's
I
wonderful.
mean, what more could you ask for? So
No.
they were wonderful. So that was it. That was my 5 hours of writing in my little corner with them. And then I would go off ride my horse. And then in the evenings, my husband wanted to go out to dinner with him on Hilton Head Island. It was a perfect schedule. I was so spoiled. I mean, so spoiled. And then COVID came along and that changed a bit. Barnes and Noble still were open for as long as they could.
Mm.
But then, we had the social distancing and then they had to close down for a while. And now the cafeteria there, they've got like 3 tables and they've got a big sign there saying, please don't stay for longer than half an hour. So the
Oh.
5-hour thing's gone out the window. That came along and then my horse hurt himself. So my schedule right now is get up, go to church, go to the barn, sort him out, riding him, yay. Then I go to Kroger, which is just down the road, and they're being very nice to me. I mean, they are, yes. They make the tea and bring it over to me now. I don't even have to wait. They're just unbelievable. So I stay there for about 3 hours, and then I have to go back to the barn and redo my horse's legs and kiss him on the nose,
Oh.
and then come home and then come back. So.
Well, so you're still getting it in, even though your whole schedule was thrown into an upheaval. You're still getting it in, and
I don't know about you, but I'm in such a bad mood if I don't get to write. Are you like that?
yes. Well, there's the couple feelings that I get. Like one, like insane guilt if I don't sit
Yes.
down and write and keep to my schedule, because I always feel better. Anything I do after I've written, I do it first thing in the morning, and I always feel better knowing I got my writing done. So I have like this guilt thing about it, but it's like I'm always happier and not depressed if I've gotten my writing done, because it's a gift to yourself to embrace your creative streak, whatever's going on in you, and if you ignore it, then you don't feel as good.
You're just frustrated, which is also a way of knowing that you're doing something you should be doing, I think.
Oh, totally.
This is why we have to be doing this. We're driven to do it for a reason. It's just who we are.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you too, because I find this fascinating. Like some people really love like going elsewhere and writing, and then other people really like staying put and writing in their home office. Like for me, I'm a home office person. My horses are literally right in front of me, and I look at them all day while I'm writing.
Yeah, it's great.
I have a room that I love, and it looks like you've got a lovely room that you love.
Yeah,
too.
I do. Yes.
But you prefer to write outside. Why? I'm just curious about your perspective on that.
That's a very good question. I'm actually able to write here, and I have written here, especially when COVID was raging. I mean, number one, yes, we did this office so I could write, and my husband sometimes says, why aren't you in your office writing? I said, good question. So I can, but I like, okay, if I'm at home, then it's too easy to get up and do other stuff. But when COVID first struck, I was spending a lot of time in my room. I'm capable of being in my office and being a good girl and writing, as I am capable of doing. But I find if I go to a cafe, then I can't buy a drink and not get my writing done. I don't deserve to have that drink if I'm not getting my writing done. Then I shouldn't be there. And then I get into it and I'm happy to be there. Again, I'm not sure about you, but I need a few minutes to get into it. Much as I love doing it, I'm perfectly capable of procrastinating.
Oh, yes.
And then I start writing and say, why did it take me so long to sit down and do this? I love this. So if I have a routine, go to the cafe 9 o'clock or whenever, then that is who I am at that point. I am a writer for the next few hours and I get into it faster. Don't ask me why. But I know a lot of writers like to go to a cafe.
No, I mean, I love that. I love how you said that. I love how you said that if you're at home, you can be tempted to get up and go do other things and get away from your creative work. And this is a routine that works for you. When you're there and you have your tea and you've got your laptop, that this is your writing time, and that works. Like whatever works to get it done is like important. So you've discovered what works for you, and that's great advice for other authors who want to get something done. Often you have to go somewhere else out of the home so you don't get distracted and you focus on exactly what you're intending to do, which is right.
If I could add to that I'm surprised that I was able to switch locations. I thought that it was going to, I thought I was going to have a meltdown about having to go somewhere else, which is ridiculous. And it wasn't true in the end. But you can adjust very quickly. You just have to find that place wherever it is that turn it into your space. And
Mhm.
once it's your space, then you're off and running.
Yeah, and
Quite
that is one thing too about the pandemic. It sure does make us appreciate the things that we once did that maybe we, I know you appreciated your Barnes and Noble and how they treated you and your little spot, but it like makes you
Yeah.
appreciate all the more the things that you were once able to do around your creative life or even just your social life or anything. So I
Yeah,
think,
I mean, everybody has.
yeah. So when you're able to go plunk your hiney back down at that Barnes and Noble, you're going to be one happy author, get back to your spot. You're probably going to write like 27 books, like in like, you know, 2 days.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, that'd be great. Let's hope. Yeah.
Speaking of, on average, like how, you have written quite a few books, like on average, how long does it usually take you to write a book, keeping the schedule that you do? It sounds like you're pretty committed to your schedule, which is the most important way to get books done. So how long does it usually take you to write a book?
It takes between 3 and 4 months.
Hmm,
I
that's
always
fast.
Oh, it's funny you say that because I think, gosh, this is slow. There are other people out there writing about 10 books a year. Why can't I be one of those? But I can't, and it's not worth even trying to be.
Mhm.
So yeah, I 3 to 4 books a year. How many do you write?
I'm, I'm pretty much one book a year kind of girl. But
Oh,
I'm
good for
doing
you.
like this podcast and all these other things.
Well,
But yeah,
yeah, it's not exclusively what you do.
but I've noticed that the more books I write, the faster I do get. And the more I stay with my routine, the more I
Yeah.
get done and the quicker they get done. What happened for me early on in my career is I would get knocked, my writing career, I'd get knocked off my routine often. And then it takes a while to get back with your story. But I find if you're touching it every day, it's easier to be with your characters and
Yes.
easier to move the story forward.
Yes. Yeah, because you know them so well, you can't help yourself. But
Oh, and they're just in your head
um,
telling you what to write if you stay with them
yes,
all the time.
yes, it's very true.
And
Yes.
in your books, how many words in general is an average book for you?
It's funny you should say that because I've just almost finished the first draft of the next one,
Mm.
and you've got that little number there on your screen telling you how many words, and I'm thinking, gee whiz, that's a lot less words than the last book. So I pulled out the last two and I thought, oh man, I've got another 20,000 words to go, and that translated into about 14 chapters. I was just sitting there yesterday figuring this out, but that tells me that it's okay. To answer your question, it's around 60,000.
Okay.
60, between 60 and 70,000.
Hmm.
It started out a lot, yes, actually. The first book was probably about 45,000.
Hmm.
Then it mushroomed. So here I am writing the second book of the third trilogy, and it's right now 45,000 words. And the first book was 67,000.
Hmm.
So that tells me the book doesn't have enough in it. I
Hmm.
now know that means it doesn't have enough storylines in it. And one thing that I always do is say, it obviously needs more horse lines. I've got to put more stuff about horses.
That's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. So I was just writing out, okay, what horse incidents would fit in nicely with what I've written so far with the plot line. So anyway, these days I aim for 65,000.
Yeah, and that's a perfect number. I mean, like I think like an average novel is like what 50,000 words to 80,
Yeah.
80 to 100. So you're like
Yeah.
you're right in there. I think my books average around 80 to 90,000 words. So, it's
Well,
just what works. Like when you feel like it's done, it's done. It's like that's just
yeah.
how it goes. Like sometimes I get to the end of my stories and I'm like, whoa, it's done. It's like I knew it was getting there, but then all of a sudden you hit it and you're like, okay. And it's really not about the word count, it's about the quality of the story. So
Yes.
yeah,
But it's
which
also when you get to the end, you feel sad?
kind of. And I was like, yeah, because
Oh,
it's like reading a great book or watching an awesome movie or a TV series that you don't want to end. And then you're like,
right.
but then you're like, oh my gosh, where are they taking me now? Because often my characters are like, I have more to say here. So
Yes,
it's
yes.
also another one.
I've got some great friends, two in particular, who are very good at saying, this is where they need to go next. I mean,
Ooh.
they do my work for me. It's wonderful.
Oh yes, that's awesome. Yeah, reader feedback often helps a lot. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes readers will say, "I wish I knew this about so and so," and then it's like, "Oh wait, okay," and then that blooms up in the next book in the series. That's a fun part about writing a series, is you can kind of
Yeah.
address questions and expand your characters and lead them into new situations. It's a lot of fun. That being said, How do you reach your readers, Hillary? It's like you're doing it. You're like a rock and rollin' indie author. So how are you getting to your readers?
The first thing I did was start out trying to get subscribers. I found out through a lot of research that's what excuse me, that's what authors do. They need subscribers. That's a lot of authors say that they wish they had got a subscriber base before they even wrote their first book, which sounds a little interesting. I would not want to have done that. But I found out you need a website, you need to have a magnet, which, I mean, you don't have to do this, but this is a recommended way by a guy called Nick Stevenson. He's a British writer, and okay.
I'm familiar. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, he has some great resources and tips. And I love that you're talking about this, because this is what it's all about: educating yourself. Get out there, educate yourself, learn what is working for other authors. Take what you like, leave what you don't, but learn. Like that.
Yes.
It's a constant growing experience as an author, and particularly an indie author. And I love that you got out there and you're like, okay, I'm going to educate myself. That's like so cool.
Well, he's a great resource. I mean, Nick Stevenson, he comes out with a lot of really helpful stuff. And yeah, he said website, reader magnet. And then also, I don't know if readers are familiar with BookFunnel. Do you know BookFunnel?
Mm-hmm.
So you can put your book on BookFunnel. You become a member of BookFunnel. I think it's about $150 a year, but believe me, it's absolutely worth it. So you can put your book on there as just to get subscribers. So put it on there for free, and people subscribe to you to get your book. But you join your book in with a whole bunch of other people's books for a particular promotion. So you have other authors sending their subscribers to your book, and then you get more subscribers, and then your subscribers, once you get a base, go to their books, and it's shared resources. So that's a wonderful way to get more subscribers. And then slowly but surely, I just gradually got a bigger and bigger subscriber base, and they've been wonderful. They've been absolutely wonderful. And from that group, I've developed a launch team. I know you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very active. They always read the new books, and they are so sweet about posting reviews to help me on Amazon and BookBub and Goodreads and anywhere else that they can think of. So it started out very small, as it does. And you get that first subscriber and you go, oh my gosh, I have a subscriber. And then you think, oh, I'm so glad they don't know they're the only one. And then somehow it snowballs, but it does. It just does. But definitely you start with that. If you get some people to write reviews for your books, that helps so much to get people interested. It's tough. It's tough, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a hard thing, getting reviews. But I think they said for every 100 readers that read a book, only one will leave a review, and they are so important for authors. But I think people are nervous about it. That's why you building a launch team or a beta reader team is such a smart idea, because these are people who love your work and are invested in you, and then you offer them, I imagine, a free copy of the newest book, and then ask them.
They get an art copy, and then I would say for the first 5 good reviews I get from them, I send them the hard copy too.
Oh, that's lovely. That's a nice way.
I'm so grateful to them. I sign it. And,
that's a nice way to reward them. I love that. And then how big is your beta reader team? Because I don't feel like it has to be like 500 people to make an impact,
No, I've got my book launch team is 80 people. And then I've got also on Facebook, I didn't mention that, my Facebook friends, I tell them straight away, because a lot of my Facebook friends are my buddies from my writing. So I've got people from my dressage association in Maryland and in Virginia, places I've been. I post there, and they read them, and they write reviews as well, and hopefully tell their friends. So they're also people I immediately tell about the new book, as well as my launch team from my subscriber base. And not everybody on my launch team writes a review, but enough of them do to make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is really fantastic. And you're really speaking to the power of building community and being good to your readers and good to people and, working with other equestrians, letting them know about your books. So it's all about being great to people, I think, is how we actually have an impact as authors, is just to take care of the people who are reading our books, because we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if they're not reading our books,
Well,
right?
yeah, I'm so grateful to people who bother reading them, and definitely if they write a review. It's just amazing to me still that they do that. I'm enormously grateful to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you are doing so much right, and this interview has been so packed with great information. I really appreciate you, Hilary. I always like to ask this question too, because the answers are always so different, and I like getting different perspectives. But for you, what has been the hardest part about being an author? But on the flip side of that, of course, our readers. But what's been the very best part of your author journey?
The hardest part is getting a bad review and saying it doesn't matter, keep going.
Hmm.
I'd say that's the absolute hardest part. And even harder than that is when you get a bad review for a very bizarre reason that doesn't seem to, that seems unfair. But
Hmm.
so what? Everybody deals with that. That's the thing. You say, okay, so
Hmm.
what? So
Hmm.
what? It doesn't matter. Just move on. You're doing what you feel you should be doing. Keep doing it. Don't let that affect you. And I haven't had enough really bad reviews to even that I should even be worrying about it. So that's the tough part. That's the tough part about being a writer. You've got to have a thick skin, even though you're a creative, so you have a very thin skin. It's just part of
Exactly.
the deal. This is part of the deal. But the fun thing about writing is you create what you want, isn't it? I talked about control earlier. You got control over your characters, over your setting, over everything. It's just magic. And you sit there. I was saying earlier, why do I procrastinate? I love doing this. And you sit down and you're in your world, and it's just wonderful. It's
Hmm.
just wonderful. You're in your happy space,
Hmm.
just doing what you love, doing what I love riding my horse and doing what I love writing. So that's the best part about being an author is you control it, you make it happen, and you know you can do it again tomorrow.
Oh, melt my heart. You've spoken like a true creative, and you said so many things that really I connect with there, like the developing a thick skin, because it happens to all of us with the difficult reviews, and just keep going, and you put your creative work out there. And I think another author told me the best sort of advice, which was, you cannot please everyone. Not everyone is going to like what you wrote, just
Right.
like not everybody likes coffee, not everybody's going to like what we're writing. But if it's calling you, keep going forward what you're doing, which is awesome. And then the you get the procrastination, I completely connect with too. Like, I often say the same thing to myself: why did I procrastinate when I come out of my writing session? Because I feel so alive. And it's just like that. And you got to get over that initial hump and just sit down and do the work, and then it's like magic, like you said, which is, it's weird. It's a weird writer thing. But then but then also, like, just the magic that you talked about. Like, sometimes I'll come out of a writing session and I'll like read what I wrote, and I'm like, who the heck wrote that? Do you ever have that experience?
Yes, I do. Yes, yes.
Like, I wasn't even there. Like, who did
Yeah, yeah.
that?
You're
Yeah.
just so in the zone. It's just pouring out of you and you don't even realize it.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh,
amazing. Total high.
oh, absolutely. And the
Yeah,
best kind, once you make yourself do it and you get over that procrastination hump.
yeah.
And if you could go back before you published your first book, what piece of advice would you give yourself, before embarking on your author career?
I think it would go back to what I was saying earlier about being serious about getting email subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
I've read plenty of books where so many authors have said the same thing, and they are so important because they're there that they're people who care about your work.
Mm-hmm.
So develop people who care about your work and make you feel it's worth carrying on, even on those days when you think, is anybody going to read this? But the second thing in conjunction with that is just keep writing anyway. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think nobody's going to read it. When I started writing some of these books, I wrote a Christian mystery called Brittle Diamonds that has a horse in it. It had to have a horse in it, but it's not about horses. It was to do with coming back to Catholicism, and then discovering the Catholic Church is going through a bad period. So I wrote what I just wrote it because I had to write about a priest who was a good priest. I guess he was the forerunner to Father Michael, thinking about it. But I had no idea whether anyone was going to read it. No idea whatsoever. I just wrote it because I had to write it. And it's been many years since I wrote it, and now it's coming into its own. But it didn't matter at the time. I wrote it because I was very passionate about the subject, and I was just going to write it anyway.
Yes, and you were listening to your muse and your soul and like what was propelling you forward. And I think that as a writer, that's the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned the email subscribers and the newsletter lists. And it is a different style of writing when you're communicating with people on your email subscriber list. But those are good people to take care of, because I wanted to point out that you own your relationship with people when they subscribe to your email. Like you do not own your relationships with people on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, like Amazon. Any of that could go away at any point, any day. But if you have someone's email address,
very good point.
Yeah, if you have someone's email address and a relationship with them, and they're interested in who you are, and you're taking good care of them, that email list is going to be more important to you than your social media followers or channels, because you have immediate connection.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But Jimmy, you're right. But it has, like you said, it's a very different kind of writing, and that's been quite hard for me to develop. But thankfully, because I write horse fiction, that means when my readers are interested in horses, yay. So I do always have a section about what's going on with Cruz. As you appreciate, with everything going on with him recently, I've had plenty to write about. And people have been very sweet, and they've responded to that. So there's a little section in my newsletter about that. So it's easy for me to write about my horse, but I still have to think about what else to write in my newsletter besides, oh, look, I've written a new book. And
exactly, it's about
you've got to offer value. Yeah, you've got to offer value. You can't just say, I've written a new book and now I want you to buy it. No, that's not how it works.
Exactly. Well, and to that point, like telling the story about what's going on with your horse, it's like people who support authors by signing up for their email newsletters are actually interested in the author as a human. Like, what makes them tick? How do they write the books the way that they do? Like what are their inspirations, and like what does their muse call for them? So it's different, like when we write fiction, we're kind of behind the scenes using our experiences to sort of fuel the stories, but it's not about us. But then when we turn over to our email newsletter list and we're interacting with our readers, it is about us. And sometimes it's hard for a creative to pull back the curtain and talk about themselves. So, and there's a lot of resources out there to like help you learn the skill, but it's more than it's like what you said, it's more than sending them a note saying, buy my book. It's about building a relationship.
Well, I have to say, Nick Stevenson has been very useful to me in that respect, because he writes very interesting emails, and most of the time it's silly stuff going on with his kids. And
I'm on his newsletter list too, and I'll link to him.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking. Yeah. I thought, wow, he's writing everyday stuff, and I love it. So let's try that with my newsletters. People do, like you say, people do actually want to find, which is amazing to me. I didn't think they would, but they do. Great. I can write about me. I can do that.
We can try that hat on every now and then.
Yeah.
It really is interesting though, like when you embark to tell a story, you never expect that these other pieces will come with it, or that people would even be interested in who you are as a human being. But it's so beautiful. And that's really what it's about. It's about being human and humanity and sharing our humanity with each other, really, when it comes down to it.
And then the other side of the coin is when they write to you and tell you stuff going on with them, responding to what you've written. I love that too. I just love it when they write to me.
It is the best feeling ever. It means that you moved, touched, and inspired someone. It's really special. Oh, I have goosebumps. I'm loving talking to you. So Hilary, what is next? Like, what are you up to? Where are you going? What are you heading? More books in the pipeline?
Well, okay, so I'm writing the second one of this third trilogy, which I wasn't ever going to write anyway. I wrote the first book in it and shelved it because I didn't know where it was going to go. And then a friend of mine said, well, hang on a minute, no, you've got to keep going with this, and this has got to happen, and that, and what happens here and here. So that's why I'm writing the trilogy. So writing the second book now, as I mentioned, and then obviously the third book in that. But after that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I will write a fourth trilogy or whether I should go into something different. I have also written the draft outline, I should say, the outline for the fourth Sinclair Island romance too, because I am having a lot of fun with that. I can't deny that. And the pretty dramatic, this fourth one that I've written. So it's probably, I'll finish this trilogy while still in my head, and I'm going with the characters, and then another one of the Sinclair Island romances. And then I'd like to write something that connects the Hilton Head romance that I originally wrote with the Sinclair Island romance. And the characters, they're coming on to Sinclair Island from Hilton Head. So something's over we go, but I don't know what to call it, because it won't be the Hilton Head one. I don't know if it'll be Hilton Head / Sinclair Island. Who knows?
Oh, like a fun, like, connector offshoot series. Yeah. Oh, I love this.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm galloping out and I'm grabbing these because I love Hilton Head Island and I'm so excited they're in their romances. My mom is going to be all over this. You're going to have someone in your corner, like, she loves supporting local authors too. So, I mean, this is just so unique that we connected, and I love that. So I have so enjoyed speaking with you today.
I've had a wonderful time. Thank you very much.
Yes. Can you let listeners know where they can find you and your books?
Website is quite simply HilaryWalkerBooks.com. So if you plug in HilaryWalkerBooks.com, that's my website, and it's up to date. I've got all my books on there, and you find the links to Amazon, but I also publish on other platforms, as you mentioned. If Amazon were to pull the rug out from under my feet, I'd like to be elsewhere. So, and also because Barnes & Noble have been so good to me, as I mentioned, I've been very careful to publish with them too, which I do through Draft to Digital. I don't know, do you know Draft to Digital? I use them use Amazon and Draft to Digital to get my books out on other platforms, including Barnes & Noble. But my website has the links to everything, that all the various platforms.
Okay, and on your website, can they get to you on Facebook and other social media platforms where you may be?
Yes, I've got my little buttons there for the other platforms as well.
Excellent. So I will make sure to link to all those places in your show notes so people can get directly to you and your books and your social media platforms and learn more about you.
Thanks, Kai. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's just incredible that you do this for us, as you're trying to get your writing done too. So it's amazing that you take the time to help us out too. It's really wonderful. Appreciate it so much.
It's my pleasure. I mean, it just makes me so happy when equestrian authors unite. That's like what I'm all about. And I learned so much. I've learned so much today talking with you, and it's just a joy. I really love talking to our community. So thank you for the gift of your time and being on the show, Hilary.
Thank you so much, Carly. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and riding, just like me. Visit my website, carlycadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlycadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlycadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Cade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.